What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Competitive Edge Podcast. So, it probably goes without saying, you know this, whether you're an athlete, a mom, a dad, brother, sister, you're competing today in some way, some shape or form, and you know the differentiator could be your mindset. I've always learned that talent can get you so far in sports, business, life, but the differentiator oftentimes is your beliefs and your mindset. So today I'm super excited because I love to nerd out on these things. Many of you know, you followed the show, my dad being a psychologist, my athletic background. When we get to bring someone in that has a very unique, but also experienced what it takes to perform at the highest levels, not burn out, not crash out, but perform and actually sustain that and enjoy your life. I want to bring those conversations to you because no matter where you are, always believe there's a little bit more. If we were to tweak this or to tweak that, we could improve our performance and actually get more out of ourselves and actually enjoy life. So today is pretty awesome. We got Dr. Haley Perlus. I was looking at this, over 20 years working with high performers, PhD, working with sports psychology, and this intersection I think about for high performers where you move out of the theory, you move out of the books, you move out of the, let's say, motivational podcast or video you watched, and you get into actual application. And I'm excited for today because her experience working with high performers, athletes, corporate executives, what has she learned? In 20 years, you got to imagine the conversations she's had and what she has learned from people that are doing it well and those that have struggled. We can all learn. So this is always one of those conversations, selfishly, I get to learn from, I nerd out in, and I cannot wait to bring this to you. So get a pen and paper ready because you're going to want to write down some things. And I would encourage you, as you listen to this conversation, look for things in your own life to where you've been either holding yourself back, your mindset isn't it really where that peak performance would be, and find some things that Dr. Haley shares with us and you can implement in your life now. So, okay, you said I could call you Haley, so I'm gonna skip the doctor stuff since they know the PhD and all that.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. I'm super excited to be here. When I first, came across your podcast, obviously, to look to see all of your accomplishments, but then I just love the title of your podcast because I'm not afraid of competition. I think it's a great word. And so the fact that we can look for a competitive edge and embrace competition and use it as a good word again, because I think sometimes the word competition gets a bad reputation these days too.
Oh, 100%. And as I was researching all that you've done too, this is a cool place to start, is the people you've worked with, your client base. I love this because it's diverse. It's going to represent a large part of our audience, as we were talking about, is it's going to be the people that listen to the show. And I love you started with competition because I've wrestled with this. So I would love your take and what you've seen is, I know people today, they struggle with that a little bit. Maybe they competed in high school or earlier in their life, and now they've just gotten to a place where I call it participation is probably more of the accurate word, but how do people know if they're competing today and what are some of those benefits of competing?
Well, I think, the benefits is that if we're using it right, it's not going to contract us. And for those of us who are watching can see me, but if those people are just listening, I'm literally tightening up all my muscles and coming inside myself. And if we use it the wrong way, it'll contract us. And then we prevent all of our strengths and skills from being exerted. But if we use it the right way, it expresses us. Yeah. And so if we do go to sports for a little bit of a lesson, the best athletes out there actually play better in competition than in practice. Because it's that extra energy that competition provides that gets them to stand up a little taller, elevate, express themselves, and use that energy, not for anxiety, but use that energy for challenge and enjoyment and passion and alignment. And let's see what can happen, that type of attitude. And competition, I think we're misinterpreting it sometimes with social comparison. Mm-hmm. And it's not. And what I've learned in my studies and then working with people and even in my own performance, personally and professionally, I love the term coopetition, cooperative competition. And that's thank you, opponent, for showing up today. I want you to do your best because that's going to motivate me to do my very best and kick your butt.
Yes. Well, I can tell you're competitive, and I love that you picked up on that competitive edge. And for somebody that's listening today and they're like, hey, I used to feel like I was competing, but maybe they're just in a season where they know they're not performing their best. They know they're not competing. Are there things they can do to change that environment, what's around them, to make sure that they are just in a position to compete, or change their mindset to start competing again? Because I hear this often, and it's like, well, I used to do this and do that. And it's like, well, how do we get back to that?
That's a great question. Let me share some tangible tips, and it might not be in their work life. It may not necessarily be. It may be in their health and wellness, and maybe in their relationships. It depends also if you're competing against yourself, with yourself, in intra or intra competition with others. If you're competing against yourself, so if you just want to step up your own game, there might be moments where you find yourself getting a little bit tired. Maybe it is work. You're sending your emails and you're just getting tired, and you kind of just want to, let's just call it a night and we'll go again the next day, using that for a moment. In that moment, the competitive instinct, the competitive drive goes, wait a second. Let me challenge myself right now, not way above my capacity, but let me just challenge myself just a little bit more. If you're used to letting yourself off the hook, then you're no longer competing with yourself. So if you can say, you know what, maybe let's just see if I can answer 5 more emails. So challenge yourself. Now you're competing with yourself. And that's a good thing, because you're using it in a cooperative fashion. It's not like you're getting angry at yourself or putting yourself down. It's just, let's see what can happen. Mm-hmm. I usually do this. I usually, stop at 6 p.m. Let's just see if I can go to 6:15 and answer 5 more emails. If it's inter-competition, then you want to have a mindset of looking outside, open your eyes to the people who are doing it well. What are they doing that I can learn from? What are they doing that I can start? Where's the skill? And it's not to put yourself down and say, I'm not as good. It's, whoa, what are they doing? Where can I get that? I was in yoga this morning, and I was feeling a little tired. It was hot yoga, and I'm, in a moment, I was like, I really could do this pose instead of the extreme pose that she recommended. And then I looked around and I saw one person who went like the advanced pose, if you will. And I thought to myself, wow, what are they, that's something that maybe I can do. How did they get to that pose? Let me see. So now Coopetition. Yeah. I'm using them to compete, and in a good way. We all can win.
Hey guys, it's Brian here. I hope you are enjoying the show. By the way, if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur looking to grow your personal brand, make a bigger impact, maybe increase your leads and grow your revenue, let's help you get started today by connecting up with my friends over at the Brand Builders Group. You've heard me talk about them, but if you're new here, this is definitely the first step to get you started in turning your reputation into revenue. Head over to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey. Again, to set up your free brand call, go to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey to set up a free strategy call with one of the team at Brand Builders, and they will dive into your specific goals for how you want to grow your personal brand. I can't wait to hear how it goes. I love the way you distinguish between the two as well, because as you're sharing that, I'm thinking about myself. Like, I play these little games. It's, I don't know if I'm the only one, but when you share this, I'm like, oh, I do that. And I'm like, hey, can I just call one more person before the end of the day and my prospect list? Can I follow up with somebody else before the end of the day? It's like, even in working out, it's like, hey, can I do a couple more reps than I would have done? And even yesterday, finishing the workout, I'm like, hey, there's 4 minutes left on the clock, or 3 minutes, whatever, in this time where I'm like, I can do some more reps. I can do a little bit more here. And it is just such a boost of confidence that for anybody listening, if you haven't tried that and created little games like Haley's talking about here, I love those. And I love you said, respond to 5 more emails, right? Go pick something you're just going to do a little bit above and beyond. I have found those can be the differentiator. I make that one extra call, to your point, respond to a few more emails that I won't have to worry about tomorrow. And it's like, hey, I did something that didn't have to do, but I did it. And I would love for you to expand on that a little bit of, if people are looking for some of those, are there games they can play, or how can they be aware of like which ones to choose versus which ones? I think about, like, don't choose something that's not going to move the needle. Is what I'm always thinking, is like, don't choose something just to be busy.
Yeah. A great implementation here is to actually borrow from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. That's the founder of Flow State.
Yeah.
He has obviously, we all know about flow. We've all heard that term. But what I think we often forget about his research is that right above flow is what he calls the arousal zone. And right below flow is what he calls the control zone. And flow, for those people who don't maybe know what it actually is when your capacity and the demands of the certain stressor are like exactly at a match. So when your capabilities meet the demands. Okay. And then if you go to arousal, you just go a little bit higher. So now you're just raising the demands a little bit higher than maybe what your normal capacity is. If you go into the control zone, it's just the demands are just slightly below. And then underneath control comes apathy, comes boredom, and way above arousal comes anxiety and worry. We want to do our best to stay away from those moments of worry and anxiety and boredom and apathy. But when you're finding yourself in a moment where, you might just say, I'm done for the day because I'm not in a moment to challenge myself. Maybe in that moment, the game is, okay, do I want to step it up one notch, or I'm still going to do something, but I'm going to go to the control zone. Either way, you're still in it, but you're giving yourself a little bit of wiggle room, and autonomy is huge when it comes to intrinsic motivation. And so I will use an exercise example, because I remember this clearly. I actually recorded a little moment video of it, but I was on my road bike a couple of weeks ago and I was feeling mentally tired. I was just in that state. I've been doing it, it was a 2.5 hour bike ride, and I'm in it, and I'm done with it at the same time, even though I'm in it. And I thought to myself, you know what, you can, what do you want to do? You've got two options. You can take a little bit of that control zone and lower your cadence, or, get down a gear and get into a lower gear. But also you can maybe actually see if you could increase your cadence or step it up a notch and see what happens there. And I actually chose to get into the arousal zone in that moment. And suddenly I wasn't tired anymore. And suddenly I picked up my pace. And suddenly I was like, whoa, let's put on some better music. And I just, cranked up the whole energy. And then there are other times where I want to completely stop, but I'll let myself get into the control zone. It's all still embracing our competitiveness. It's all still embracing this energy and allowing us to be persistent and realize what we're made of.
And do you think that can be trained? And the reason I ask is, we work out with people all the time, and I had somebody recently, without sharing too much about who they're, because they would know. We talked about this workout that they were competing in, and they would have to go to a dark place to complete it. It would be difficult. There would be points in that workout that you want to quit. They're going to challenge you, and not even as much physically as mentally. And I've seen many people compete in it. And it's funny, it took them several attempts, and they finally said their breakthrough wasn't the physical, even though they trained physically and some things there, but within a couple of weeks, they were able to significantly improve their performance and their time and everything. And their comment to me afterwards was, it was the mental side. They were just locked in. They went earlier in the morning. They were able to find this other gear like you did on the bike and just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to push myself. Not sure what's going to happen here, but I'm going to go for it. And they actually felt so much better. The performance was better and all. So I ask it because of that, because conversations come up quite a bit where I see people, whether it's talent or just physical, they've got it. But the mental side is where it's just holding them back. So how do they improve or increase that? Is it just reps doing things like this? Is it time away from this where they're doing mental visualization? Like what are some of the things they can get more mentally strong or mentally tough, I guess?
Yeah, all of that, Brian. It is certainly doing the reps. So this is probably the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to mindset and mental toughness. It's when they need it the most is when they try to bring it for the first time. Then it's not going to work, because then it's not a skill. And if anything, it's going to be a Band-Aid. But it's hard. It's hard to train it in moments that you don't feel like you need it. Like if you're not feeling pressure, If today is just a really great work day, but you're not feeling a lot of stress, you're not feeling a lot of pressure, it's really hard to remind yourself, well, I need to train my brain so that it can perform under pressure. It's really difficult to do it. You can't see it. You can't look in the mirror and see the bicep growing. You can't look at your inbox and see that it's slowly getting lighter and lighter and lighter. So it's really difficult, but it's essential because you have to do the mental training so that it is accessible when you need it. And the two tools that you just said, repetition and visualization, are two fabulous ways to train. We have brains that are malleable. We plant new neural pathways in our brain all the time. I think of them as thought seeds. You plant a seed in your brain, but that's just a seed. And we have all these habitual thoughts that are dominating us, especially when the pressure is high. You know, what if I don't say the right thing? What if the interest rates fail? What if I lose this? What if our interest rates change? You know, what if? Those are daunting, habitual thoughts.
Yeah.
And so you can't just plant a seed and say, okay, today I'm going to challenge myself again to that arousal zone. No, you've got to actually water that seed with repetition and frequency. So that's the reps. And then when I'm going to embrace in coopetition. I'm going to embrace in coopetition. Where am I embracing coopetition today? Where am I finding that arousal zone? You're nurturing that thought seed. And a process called myelination takes place. And it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. And then it becomes your new dominant habitual thought, ready and willing to work for you when the pressure is on. And the old thoughts, the what if this happens and the what if that happens, like any muscle, if it's not being used, it atrophies. And so it will just naturally go away. And you've got this new trained, highly skilled mindset.
Well, so is that the conversation I had? Dr. Elko years ago that worked at Alabama, Selma Sabin and some of the guys, he talked about, he's had this saying he always uses is neurons that fire together, wire together. Is that the jam there? Is that what's happening?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's,
that stuck with me.
It works, but you have to work them. You have to work those thoughts. You have to practice it. And that's why, I don't believe that we can build confidence just by having an affirmation.
Yeah.
But I do believe in one-liners. And if we live into them and buy into them and use them, then those are those neurons, that get wired together and fired and become your dominant go-to thought patterns.
Yeah. I love that. As you share that, I've shared this with a bunch of people, but we adopted this, and I think it was a first forum, like with Andy Frisella and them, but we adopted in our family, we do hard things.
There you go.
And I found myself running yesterday. I was tired. In the middle of the world, it got super hot. It was one of those moments where you're like, did it just increase 20 degrees? Like it just got really hot and humid. And I remember somebody was like, hey, Brian, drop us some motivation before the next run and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, we're out here. We do hard things, and they're just like, yeah, we do. Yeah. I'm going, but I've trained that with our kids. When you mentioned the one-liners, I thought about, we use some of those in our house because I do believe in them. And I refer back to them and I'm like, I know there's been times where I'll have that self-talk. And if I can say something like that, that'll just trigger something, memory of like, I've done this before and we'll get through it. Yeah. Are there one-liners like that you would suggest? Do people come up with them on their own? Can they borrow them? Like, is there any methodology to that you'd suggest?
Yes to all, but I do have one that I'm actually playing around with right now that I'm using with a lot of the athletes, whether they're corporate wellness or sport athletes that I'm working with. In a particular moment where you feel a lot of pressure and it's, I must have this, I need to get this has to happen. That's a lot of like demand. And so the focus then is, your body's just going to get contracted and your mind's going to freeze and all of your skills, operational skills, are not going to be able to just, flow out of you and be expressed. So I like, let's see what can happen when and then fill in the blank with an action step. Let's see what can happen when I do this. Or another one that a lot of people are liking and that I like for myself. What does this moment need from me? So I take now responsibility instead of, playing the blame game and looking around at all the reasons. What does this moment need for me? Maybe it is 20 degrees, warmer. What does this moment need for me? Should I shed a layer? Should I really focus on my breathing? Do I need to get into a control zone for a moment and just slow it down just so I can catch my breath and then, get used to this heat and be like, okay, it's not so bad, and then keep going? What does this moment need for me? But answer the question. When you said I do hard things, I love it. And then if I were whispering in your ear, I'd ask you, Brian, what hard thing are you doing right now?
Yeah.
So you can start to have gratitude for yourself. You can start to have confidence in yourself and realize, I'm doing this. What else can I do?
Oh, I love those. Okay, I'm going to share those. Those are going to be cool ones because I'm always looking for the one-liners, and I've found myself, and I'm sure some of the high performers listening to this will relate. We just focus so much on the outcome. I mean, it's how we were trained as athletes. Like the score at the end is what matters. Then you go back and review the game tape and all the stuff, but the score, like that was the result. And in sales, it's like, what was the end result? And I often find, like I even find myself every once in a while, I was like, man, okay, hey, go back to the process, go back to the things you got to do today. What would you say to somebody today that's struggling with this, that they're just so focused on the outcome, and your point, they're just attached to what the end result is, and they're not in the moment at all?
First, it's important to really understand for yourself how that's not working for you.
Yeah. Been there.
Again, we're all told, focus on the process, stay present, and then we're still focusing on the outcome. So really take a good look and see how focusing on the outcome is not helping you. Where are you making mistakes? Where are you losing, your strength set? Where are you minimizing things where you don't need to be minimizing them because you're just not focusing on them? So actually have a conversation with yourself, journal with yourself, ask for feedback. But then you have to be open to the fact that you're going to be a little bit critical of yourself at first.
Yeah.
But confident people are actually open to that. Like they're, that isn't working for me.
Mm-hmm.
So be open-minded and first answer the question, why is it not working for you? So you can actually then not cling on to, I need to focus on the results so much. And so that's the first thing. So you really have an understanding, because I can tell you all day long that the outcome, and you can share with your subscribers and listeners and everyone that you coach, don't focus on the outcome. Yeah, coach. Yeah, Brian, thanks for that. I know. But do you really know why we're saying this in your own life and in your own world? So really look to see how it's not helping your situation. And then I do this all the time with everyone I work with. I want to know your strengths before I want to know anything that you want to improve. Because people don't call me when they're amazing. People call me when they have things to figure out. Yeah. Before we even get to that, I want to know your strengths. Because as a professional athlete, Brian, that it always comes down to the fundamentals.
Yeah.
So what are your fundamental strengths? What are your skills that when you freeze, you still know that you can access this? When you don't know the answer to this question, you still know that you can bring this skill set to this conversation. Mm-hmm. And that then allows you to start thinking about the process, your strengths, and then how do I bring my strengths into this next call? How do I bring my strengths into this next moment? How do I bring my strengths into this process? And now we're more comfortable focusing on the process. And then with confidence, we can then start to improve our weaker links.
Okay, I love this because we've done all these strength finders, we got DISC profiles, we got all these things I'm sure you're very well versed in and all. If somebody's struggling with finding their strengths, this still happens in conversations with me. Is there a way to coach them through, or anything you would suggest, any of those assessments and all that you rely on? If they're like, hey, I know a couple strengths, but they're just struggling. I had this happen recently. It was fascinating to me. Like, this person, I see their strengths, they don't see their strengths. How do you bridge that gap for them or help them?
There are plenty of assessments. I personally don't use them myself in my practice. I want to hear your story. So I just start asking questions about your story. Like, why did you choose this career? When's the last time that you're really proud of yourself in this career? What kind of feedback have you received? Positive feedback, from your coaches. What do the people who know you the best, love about you the most, believe in you the most, trust in you? And from there, we can pull out some strengths. And sometimes they're tactical, technical, strategic, and sometimes they're more characteristics or values or those types of beliefs, best self words. And then we've got something. And then I want you to choose 3.
Okay, so 3.
I like 3. The psychology of persuasion talks about the magic number being 3. We like to have autonomy, and different situations call upon different strengths. So it's nice to have the choice. So that's the autonomy piece. But the confused mind says no. So the magic number is 3. Except if I'm remembering Robert Cialdini's work, except in gelato tasting and the color of your tennis shoes. Then the more options, the better.
Yes. Oh, especially on the tennis shoes. I'm there. Gelato. Yeah. Taking me back to Italy. I'm like, gelato. We tried it all. It was awesome.
Well, there you go. Because it's the experience.
It is. You got to try them all. And my father-in-law loved the gelato. So we stopped at a lot of different spots there. And I remember like, okay, it's going to be a gelato break a few times during the day. And you're walking so many miles, you got to keep eating there. Calories don't count in other countries, I've been told. But no.
There you go. Well, certainly when you're on vacation, they should not.
That's right. Okay, so I was thinking about this. I saw some of your work, and I was looking at this, and this is where I see a lot of people. I know my own journey have struggled with this: is past failures, things that have not gone well, whether it's in sports and athletes, and they just can't get past that bad game or that bad season, sometimes even, or what may have happened. And then in business, they may have had a bad year or a couple of years or whatever, bad month, however it is. How do you work with people and advise them to move past these things that, for high performers, I found even in my own journey, there's times that I just don't want to let go of some of that. It's like, I can have all these things going well over here, and there's that one thing that's like, man, I could have done that better. And I'm looking back towards that versus forward. I saw you talk about that some, but I wanted to break that down with you because this one unfortunately comes up more than I would want it to for me and for other people, where they were successful in all these things, but this one thing or something in their past seems to be holding up space.
Yeah. One of the greatest lines, because I know now you and I both like lines, one of the greatest lines I heard from this was from one of my mentors, who I actually co-host a podcast with, Dr. Jack Groppel. We did an episode on fear, and he said, show me, I may paraphrase a little bit, show me a competitor who's not afraid to fail, and I'll show you a very dangerous competitor. Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean? No one likes to fail. No one wants to fail. But the best out there are willing to risk it for the ultimate, realizing their ultimate potential. And so how do you come about that? I believe it's about building a really good relationship with failure. Mm. It's understanding really what it is saying. And sometimes it's informational, truly. I mean, sometimes if you fail, sometimes if if an athlete doesn't choose to work with me, or if, I don't get this keynote, or if someone just flat out says no to me for some reason, I want to be able to cry. I want to be able to be upset. I'll never forget. When I had a great failure, I got divorced, my marriage failed, and my father looked at me and he said, cry so that you can then get up. So we need to give ourselves that moment of utter disappointment, and life isn't fair, and just go for it. And then after you've vented those emotions, because they're important and they create a lot of self-awareness and they heal too, and they are forced energy recovery, then it's, okay, wait a second, is there some information? And sometimes there's going to be some information. You know what, Haley, maybe you do want to improve on this skill. Mm-hmm. Maybe you do want to go and rehearse this. Maybe you do need a little more repetition in this. And other times I will say it's nonsense. It's not informational. It's just life. And then I don't want to cling on to it. It's nonsense. It's irrelevant. Put it aside. This is not something that it's a one-off. I do not want to spend more time on it. So you have to be able to have discernment and understand if it's informational or if it's nonsense. And if it's nonsense, keep it where it is. Now it's in the past and move on. And if it's informational, it behooves you to look at it as information and figure out what needs to be figured out so that you can get better.
I love that. It's almost like just in sports. I mean, there's certain things that you've got that are informational, and there's certain things you got to work through them and move forward. I remember one of my coaches sharing that. It's like, there's going to be some games that just don't go your way, and you can overanalyze and, replay the tape in your head and this, that, and the other. And he's like, sometimes you just need to learn the lesson, and you gave it what you had, and take that fuel into practice and train harder and be ready for the next one. I'm like,
true. But we're emotional creatures.
Yes.
So you need to be able to process those emotions, because if you don't, then you think you're logically thinking things through, but you're feeling them through. And now we're judging instead of evaluating. Yes,
which is very similar too. Is that similar to when you think about competition, they start to compare themselves to this, I just call it the Instagram culture of, everything looks perfect, everybody's got everything figured out. And then you come to find out like they're just normal people like you and I, and like they got their own set of struggles, they got their own strengths, all that. Do you think that's part of some of that where people struggle with that?
I do, which is, back to the word competition. One of the more popular topics, especially for those people who are listening, when you have children, especially with kids, teenagers, probably even getting younger these days, but It's not necessarily the challenge of competition. It's the anxiety, the threat of social comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are getting caught up in the social comparison piece and the threat of it instead of the challenge of the competitive spirit. But we think we're in competition, but we're not. We're actually just comparing ourselves socially, and everyone looks better. And I mean, I know for me, like even my little pictures that like my thumbnail on my YouTube, I enhance those. Like I just asked ChatGPT just to give it a little bit of an enhancer. The videos are raw, but but I'm not someone out there claiming to say, oh, that's exactly me. And so when I know, and I'm looking at other people, you're in the world of, you have to know the reality of the world.
Yeah.
You just have to, and I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to make you look and appear your best, because we do judge a book by its cover. But you also have to know that this is the world in which we live. So you don't compare yourself. Just be your best self and embrace the competitiveness of it, not the social comparison of it.
I love that distinction too. That's a good one. I'm going to use that because I've seen that, and it's like going back to just the essence of competition is not the comparison side of it. And I know there's a scoreboard and things. I'm like, my scoreboard is different than your scoreboard. Like what I'm viewing as success and all. I'm like, so it's hard for me to compare and go, we never agreed on the scoreboard for you and I to compete against each other on this. Now, sometimes that in sales, it is, hey guys, here's how we're going to rank everybody. Here's how the stack rank's going to go. Like we've all agreed to the terms there, but a lot of times it's not. I'm curious, as you've worked with athletes and high performers, are you seeing anything different this year? Any new trends with all of the AI, I'll just say it, and all the things, the pressure there to keep up and be more productive and do all these things? There appears to be a lot of noise to me. How are you seeing that, and how are people navigating through that to remain high performers and not get distracted with all of this coming at us every day?
So when we look at mental skills, at least how I learned it when I was going through and how I like to simplify things, and I'm using that word because I'm going to bring that up, simplify, when it comes to AI and the chaos and the clutter. Mental skills are confidence, motivation, concentration, and arousal and emotional regulation. And I want to focus on the concentration piece. a lot of people, you'll pick up a sports psychology book and the first chapter is going to be on motivation, or everyone's talking about confidence, or everyone's talking about emotional regulation, which are all really, really important. I actually think concentration and focus is usually one of the skills that I go for first when I'm working with people. And it is very hard in today's time with all the AI and all the influencers and all the experts and all the information. Not only do we not know what to focus on, but then we can't focus on it once we choose, because we're constantly getting, pounded. The door's always knocking and we're trying to focus. And because, there's so much information coming at us all at once, we're just simply cluttered. So I believe the best performers in any industry, do your due diligence, go out there and do your research, find the coach, find the podcast, find the nutritionist, ask what's good. How do you like to learn? And go find the person who's going to help you learn with your learning styles. And then once you've decided, once you've found some trust, zone in, tunnel vision, concentrate. And that's what I was sharing with you when you and I first got on. I was watching a lot of your episodes on my bike this morning, and I was like, wow, like you're covering for your industry, real estate, mortgage, for your industry. You've got, how to post and how to have your brand and mindset and the actual business of mortgages. And so hopefully people who have chosen to listen to you are being able to focus on you and what you're providing, and they don't have 10 other coaches, because it's just too much information and we can't process it. And then, as I said before, the psychology of persuasion, the confused mind says no, and we resort to that comfort zone, even though it's not helping us. We just resort to what's comfortable, or just what's habitual. But if we are allowing ourselves to, again, do our due diligence, choose our person or people, our team, and then dive into that work. Dive into that work. I promise you, I can almost guarantee it, that commitment with that focus is going to enhance your performance. Yeah.
I would agree. I think focus is the superpower, and the ability to concentrate and do things. And I always laugh at people. I was a goalkeeper in soccer and all that. And to stay focused back there when you may not see the ball for minutes at a time, sometimes a long time, but in the moment, you have to be locked in. And there's no way to watch. Like, you can't be looking off and watching the stands, or, if there's another game going on nearby, or cars or train. I don't know, any distractions that could be there. Paying attention to things that aren't there. I was like, man, it's a muscle. And I say, like, I went and played a weekend of like 4 games, and I could find, like, my focus was getting stretched because I haven't played 4 90-minute games in a weekend. And I could just tell my brain was a little tired a couple times, where I had to almost say, hey, Brian, lock back in. Here's where we are, and play games. So you shared that.
Yeah, I'm working with a professional soccer player right now. We're doing that exact exercise. So it's the ability to decide what's relevant and what's irrelevant in the moment.
Yes.
And so he has, like, where you just, you basically cognitively went through that, but he has this, like, not for me, kind of brushes his shoulders on each side.
Yeah.
So that's his, like, pattern interrupt, and then, lock into what is relevant. Yeah, it's a skill like any other, but it is harder and harder and harder with all the information out there. So but ultimately you got to do the work and be disciplined. Right. And then once you choose, everything else is just noise. So be like, there's a great movie, if you remember it, For Love of the Game, with Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
He has this line, talk about another line, clear the mechanism. Mm-hmm. And he's a pitcher. And just noise, game keys. You can't pitch a tent, says the audience, says the spectators. And then he just says, clear the mechanism. And everything goes on mute and everything goes blurry, except for the catcher's glove.
So good. Good movie. I love those. Even teaching our kids those things. Our oldest son was competing in taekwondo this last weekend. And that is like chaotic, because they fight, and then they take a little break and somebody else is fighting, and it's like all this stuff, like they're coming down, but then they're back up soon again. And it was like, working with him on refocus. Who are we against next? What have we seen? What did we just learn? What are the judges looking for? Like there's these simple cues. It's like, okay, we got to get ready for the next match quick as we go through. And I can tell he's growing in that. I said, well, he's growing in the actual arts itself and his, combat skills and defense and such. I'm like, for him, I can just see the mental side starting to grow. And I'm like, man, this is cool, because when he gets really locked in and focused, we learned this last weekend. I'd love for you to speak on this, is we started to tap into a little bit of, I don't know if it's the anger side, the mad side or whatever, but he had lost a match that he says he shouldn't have lost, like very competitive. And one of those, he just was like, okay, that's not going to happen again. The next match he comes out and just annihilates the guy. And I was like, okay, there's a balance. And even I listened to his coach kind of share with him is, okay, now we know, like, there's this level of like, you're not really locked in and you're not really aggressive. And there's this level of like, you're going to tear somebody's head off and like knock them into the stands. And I loved it. He's like, and there's this point in between that we're going to find for you. Almost like you said, like a flow state of like, that's where you're best, because we don't want you swinging for the fences either and taking somebody's head off. Like that may not go well with a skilled fighter against you. I was thinking about that as you're sharing. I'm like, man, so many life applications.
For everything. And he's got emotions. Your son has emotions, but the idea in those moments is not to be an emotional performer, it's to be a performer with emotion.
Okay, and what's the difference?
To me, and I don't know, this is not scientific, but a lot of people will say, just in layman's terms, oh my God, they're so emotional. You're being so emotional. So I'm just using from what, like in that respect, what does that mean? Maybe it means that your emotions are in control. You're so emotional. You're not thinking things through. You're just being emotional. So that, to me, I don't know that that's going to help, because then you are going to go and bite the guy's head off because you're being emotional.
Yeah.
But to use that anger wisely, and to use that anger as energy, and what does this moment require of me? How am I going to use that energy that I'm feeling? Now you're playing with emotion, but you're in control, and you're guiding those. You're the conductor. You're directing those emotions. It's the butterflies in your stomach. Are those butterflies in your stomach swarming all around, taking control, and you have no decision-making processing skills? Or are you putting those butterflies in an inverted V, just like birds fly above? Yeah. Because they're fast and efficient and their energy being used for you. So now I'm performing with my butterflies instead of my butterflies are taking over.
I love that. I think that's a great way to explain it. And I can relate to those. I had a speaker coach that was helping with that when I started doing some speaking, and I was so nervous getting out there to speak. And it was like, oh man, what are we doing in this? And I remember coaching me through some of that. And it was like the difference as you're sharing that, like the emotional side versus having emotion and being in control, like the butterflies, he used that. And the difference, once it clicked, it was like, oh, okay. That's what this feels like. And it was new, because I would tend to be the emotional ones, like, that's what I thought I needed to be and do. And you could almost feel out of control at points where I was like, nope. Okay. So I got to ask you this, because I was preparing, you talked about this, and this is a really good conversation for people around pressure and how they deal with pressure. And I think all of us deal with it differently. We all probably put some self-imposed pressure. We might have pressures people don't see, all of that. What have you learned, and do you advise people as they're dealing with that pressure coming in, and how to maintain and sustain high performance over time and seasons while the pressure sometimes mounts? People say it adds up. Different seasons, you might feel more pressure than others. How do we balance that in and deal with that?
Yeah. I'll share a story. I'll share the short version, but it's how I got into sports psychology when I was 12 years old. I was a competitive alpine ski racer from Toronto, and I was competing in the Juvenile World Championships. And right before I was about to compete, 45 seconds before I was about to compete, my coach pulls out $100 Canadian bill, places it in front of my face, and tells me that he had bet on me to win this Juvenile World Championship. So in that moment, I'm at an emotional and a mental fork in the road. On one hand, anger, worry, frustration, anxiety. How could a coach do that? What if he's wrong? I don't want to let him down. Pressure in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, challenge, passion, confidence, hopefulness. Wow, if my coach believes in me, doesn't that mean I'm doing something right?
Mm-hmm.
I tell you this story because it has a good ending. I do remember thinking, wow, he's got such high expectations. That's cool. Why would he have such high expectations? Well, I have won every Psalm race so far this year. This is a technical course. That's where I shine. Let's go and make something happen. Let's see what can happen. So I went down that race course. I won. He came to the bottom of the hill, congratulated me, kept the $100 for himself. But he said to me, it's amazing what your performance can be when you get your head straight. And it wasn't just that moment. I really believe he had been training me all year. When you experience pressure, and we're not going to shy away from pressure. Haley, you're going to have pressure. Look, I'm literally betting on you. I'm putting pressure on you. When you have pressure, and this is what we know about a theory called cognitive appraisal theory, we either appraise the pressure, interpret the pressure as a threat or a challenge. Mm. And so today, I have a little line that I use. Pressure isn't the enemy. It's the invitation. What is pressure inviting you to do? And it's your job to see how you can invite it in as a challenge instead of a threat. Hmm. I will say, though, there are times where I do believe we unnecessarily put pressure on ourselves that do not need to be there. If this is you're coming out here for the first time and going after your first deal, and you're putting so much pressure on you to get it perfect and get it right, that is unnecessary pressure. And my advice to you would be drop it.
Yeah.
Put pressure on yourself to learn, put pressure on yourself to show up, put pressure on yourself to keep your eyes open, put pressure on yourself to ask questions, but to put pressure on yourself to land the deal, unnecessary. Mm. But for those of us who do have pressure that's not going anywhere, it's real because this is the life in which we live. How can we invite it in? Welcome to the club. How can we invite it in, and what is it inviting me to do in a way that I can take it on as a challenge? And then you have to look at the resources you have. Again, going back to those strengths. Just a thought.
I love it. And I'm just thinking back, I'm glad you shared your story because I was hoping you would share the skiing story. When I was looking that up, I was like, holy crap, like you were quite accredited and did well. It's like, that's always no surprise. And that you picked this field. And I love that's when the tipping point was for you at 12. And that story, I did not know that story. But I think that's one of those cool things that for all of us, we have that point in our life. I had a coach similar to that similar things to that, and would bet on me and inspire me to go to the next level and try out for teams and things that I'm like, man, I don't even know if I belong here. But if he believes I belong here, like he knows more than I do, like he's the coach. And for all the leaders that are listening, man, wouldn't it be cool if you could be that coach like Haley had? And I've shared about a couple of my soccer coaches and mentors that believed in me way more than I did. And I just ended up on fields and in rooms where I'm like, I don't know how I got here, but let's go compete. And that's the invitation today. I love that you said pressure in the invitation, because it is something I think about as even every day as we do a workout and you're biking or you're training, like you train exceptionally hard and you're doing yoga and these things, I always think that's an invitation every day to get to compete and find out, where am I at today?
Oh yeah. In fact, this yoga instructor, she's my favorite. I had to move to Grand Junction in Colorado to go to find my favorite yoga instructor. She gets you into chair pose. She says, this is the challenge in life that you did not choose, but you're here. So how are you going to choose to embrace it? How are you going to choose to hold on to it for the 8 seconds that we're here, or the 8 breaths? And I love it though, because I always come back to I love this acronym, personal responsibility in delivering excellence, PRIDE. Personal responsibility in delivering excellence, because I always love to take it back to me. So when your coaches, believed in you, and then you said, well, I guess they believe in me more than I do. If I was your sports psych right there, Brian, I would say, well, let's see if you can believe in yourself as much as they do. Why do you think they believe in you? What are you doing? Because you want to internalize it. When my coach bet on me, I was like, why does he bet on me? Well, I've won every race. This is a technical course. We're doing the work. We have evidence and we have proof. Every single one of us has something that they can use to give themselves a boost of confidence. I don't believe in faking it till you make it. I believe in finding something that you do believe in about yourself. But then once you found it, let yourself be confident.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's going to be something that people are going to want to listen to again. And if you're struggling with that, just what you described is I went through that, moving companies a year ago and rebuilding our team from the ground up again. I'm like, I literally wrote down those things. And that's what my coach had me do. He's like, write down all the things that you've done and you've won and you've built teams. We're writing it down. I'm like, oh my goodness, we've done this and we've done this and we've done this and done. I'm like, so it's not a given, but it's pretty certain. It's pretty. We're gonna do it again. So I love this. Has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you for pouring into us and just bringing your best, because I always love these because they can help people move forward. And our audience, as you talked about, we cover some diverse topics and things that I think are interwoven. And I found that in my own life is competing in one area brings out the best in another area. And it keeps us really striving for what is that best version of ourselves. And so thank you for just bringing the wisdom. And also there's some inspiration in there. There's some one-liners, which we used a lot, that I think people can start to use today, which is always cool. Is there anything I didn't ask or you want to include in before we wrap?
The only thing, Brian, that you just sparked in me, and just knowing your background, identity, like, being able to, like, in your life, you have had quite a few roles in your life, just in your adult life: professional athlete, father, business owner, changing companies, moving companies, being a leader. Those aren't your identity. And it's really important that everyone understands that your identity are your kind of your best self words, like your strengths. Like mine is bright, full heart, and a strength magnet. So, and then I apply that identity to every role in my life, because roles come and go. As you just said, we just changed companies.
Yeah.
You were once a professional athlete. You're no longer a professional athlete. Now you're out there doing it and running and doing it, but not, I'm assuming, not being paid for your sport anymore. So roles come and go, and sometimes we ask them to go, and sometimes they go without us wanting them to go. Sometimes we lose people, and then we no longer are this role. So it's important to have that identity around who you are as a person and what your values are, and then apply them to all of your roles that you play. You just telling your story made me think of that, which is super important. But yes, I know we need to wrap up.
Oh, I love the identity. And crazy enough, I was just thinking about that on the run this morning. I was thinking about people's identity, my identity, all these things, and how we get wrapped up in these titles and roles and things. And yes, another conversation on that. And hopefully that sparks everybody to want to follow you. We'll include everything in here. Make sure you connect up. And Dr. Haley's got plenty of things. As I was going through Instagram preparing and we connected up, I was like, oh, this is great. So go check out some of the videos she shared. It's some things that will expand on what we talked about today, but even more. And I always think about when you can connect up with someone that's actually sharing that type of wisdom, we all get better. So appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, we do this to help you. If this has resonated with you, it's meant something to you, we sparked something in you that you go, hey, this was great. I needed this. Leave us a review. Those 5 stars, all the stuff we get there with the reviews, help us boost the show, get it out to more people. And share it, especially if you're a team leader. Share it with your team, share it with your friends, family, those that we can impact with this. And this is one of those shows, as we talk about, this could be even for your kids if you have them, could be for people that you know and you love and you care about. And you're like, hey, they need to hear this as much as I did. So make sure you share it out there. And until then, go out there and do something great. Take something you've learned from today, implement it in, and make sure you go out there and compete. That's what competitive edge is all about, because I believe we've all got some competitive edge. For many of us, we know what it is. We just need to get back out on the field and actually go do it. So appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode. See ya.